James Craig actually asked me to sort of register his disappointment at the timetable changes for rail network, where services are going from half hour to an hour or an hour to 2 hours under the Friends of Belden. So, I mean, I'm sure under. Can I just ask everybody to mute themselves, please? There are some people that are actually are not muted, and we can hear conversations in the background. So if you can actually just make sure that you are on mute, and when you want to speak or when you are speaking, please do unmute yourself. So Pete, that was something that I just wanted to actually put to yourself, because James asked me specifically to register his disappointment at the changes. I'm sure under your report you will give some information regarding that. So I'll leave it at that point where you can actually then respond to that. Okay. Thanks, Pete. Is there anybody else who wish to make a comment or ask a question? Andy?
Thank you, Chair. It's just a general question, really. With COVID restrictions being lifted, we've had quite a reduction in bus services locally, especially up to Thornton, especially with the late night services being cut back. So it's a point now, if you go out for an evening, you can't get home by bus. Just wondering what the general policy was now COVID restrictions are being lifted, because at the same time we hear that central government help is being withdrawn as well. Just wondering what we had to look forward to.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Raja, do you want to respond to that? Or are you going to do it under your report? Unmute yourself, please. Raja, you're on mute.
Thank you. If that's okay, Andy, I've got some notes on that and I can pass them through when I do my comment. Is that okay?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, I can't see anybody else putting their hand up or wishing to speak. Okay, if that's the case, then move to item 2, which is apologies for absence. Dominic, did you get James's apologies? I think he sent an email.
Yeah,
is there anybody else? Anybody else?
Yeah. We had apologies from Councillor Hinchcliffe, Andrew Noble, and James Craig, as you said.
Okay. Those are the
just apologies from Brandon Jones, Taj. He's on another meeting.
Okay, thanks for that. Nobody else, right? Okay. There isn't any exemption of information items, so we can actually skip that one. Notes of the meeting held on 18th of October. Those were sent out via email to everybody, as everybody had a chance to look at them. Is there any corrections or matters arising anybody wish to raise?
Yeah, Taj, can I raise one question, please? Under the people attending, we have Paul Turner down as working for First Group. Off the top of my head, I'm sure he works for Transdev. And would it be possible for us to show First Group as now First Bus whenever we refer to First Group? We refer to First Bus from now. But if we can minute that Paul Turner is Transdev and not First Group, please.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Raja, for that. Yeah. Dave, Dominic, First Group has changed its name to First Bus now, because we are under First Bus. The First Group umbrella has been withdrawn. So if we can actually just going forward, if we can put First Bus. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Page 2 and 3. And 4 and 5. None? Okay, thank you. Can we adopt the minutes? Okay. Dave, I think you're on next. Transport Committee review.
Yes, thank you. The Combined Authority last Thursday approved some changes to the way in which the Transport Committee of the Combined Authority works, and it has some implications for these district consultation subcommittees. So that would be useful just to update you as to what those changes are, because the committee will meet more often. The Transport Committee will meet more often during the year, and we've changed a little bit how the district consultation subcommittees will work. So what Transport Committee will do is it'll appoint a lead member for each of the district council areas. It's called the Transport Engagement Lead, and that's sort of the equivalent to Councillor Salam's role as we have at the moment. And the Transport Engagement Lead can sort of then decide what's the best way of holding these sort of meetings in each of the districts, because whilst I think a lot of people get a lot of value out of these meetings with public representatives and councillors, and I think the intention is to keep having that level of engagement, but maybe to have a bit more of an informal meeting with more open forums, with more ability for people to bring issues to the meetings than perhaps the structure that we've got at the moment, and to involve people a little bit more, and maybe to have different themed meetings might be appropriate in some areas where the meeting looks at some specific issues, and for there to be a little bit more local discretion into how these meetings work. Because I think, as you can probably tell from the agenda to this meeting, it's a little bit sort of stilted and formulaic, and by having them as more informal meetings, and for the Transport Engagement Lead to decide, obviously involving local people, how they want their transport meetings to operate in each of the districts. So we will still be having these sort of meetings. Hopefully they'll be in a form that works best for Bradford and for other places. So that was approved on Thursday by the Combined Authority for implementation after June, because as most of you are probably aware, we're about to have local elections, and then as the way in which local government works is that then in June the new members of the Transport Committee will be appointed on, and so the meetings we have later on the year of these sorts will be in a slightly different form. So there's an opportunity, I guess, for people who do regularly attend these meetings to sort of have views as to how they want their meetings to be conducted in future, and what the sort of content and topics should be. So I'll stop there, and happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Are there any questions?
Yes, Chair.
Go on, John.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
On the, having been involved with the Consultative Committee since it started, with the exception from 1 year, something which has always fascinated me or annoyed me at times is at the timing of meetings. It's okay for the majority of us which are here, which aren't working, but for people who work, an afternoon or morning meeting is a bit inconvenient. I tried when I chaired the PCC some years ago to get it altered, and I couldn't get it altered. Can I ask the Passenger Transport Authority, when they're looking at informal and formal meetings, look at the timing of them to make sure that we have a full representation of users of public transport, and not just the people who can actually have time off or not working. I hope I made myself clear. And I suggested some years ago we had it at 5 o'clock, and I got shouted down.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, John. And you and I have done many of these meetings over the years, haven't we?
Yes.
But yeah, we did try 5 o'clock meetings about four years ago. It is a little bit of a you'll never please everybody type of situation. But I think the reason why we're trying to move the meetings to be a little bit less formal is that if evening meetings work in that district, then we'll have them in that district. Whereas before it was a case of, well, if we're going to do evening meetings, it has to be in all 5 districts. And so it was a bit of a one rule fits all districts. Whereas now, we're trying to create a situation where if the district council, the engagement lead for the lead councillor on the transport committee for that area feels evening meetings are appropriate or whatever time of the day, perhaps not night, but then that can happen.
Well, just to actually go back to your question, John, or your suggestion, if you remember 4 years ago, we actually sent out a survey of all the members who actually attend this meeting to ask what was the most preferred time. And, everybody came back. Well, most people came back with 2 o'clock start. So therefore, I think it was about 68% of the people that actually responded back said 2 o'clock meetings would be good for Bradford. So that's why we have actually kept them at 2 o'clock throughout the pandemic. But if there needs to be another review of it, then I'm sure we will do that after the elections. You're on mute. Should I have told him that? Go on, John.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
It's okay having a consultation of people who are actually on the committee. I'm thinking of getting new members on and getting more people involved.
Yeah, if you remember, John, we actually did. We sent out, the consultation was sent out to, large number of people and groups. And if you remember, we actually, Andy will remember also that we actually even then expanded the committee at that time and added new members onto it. So by the way, but that's a suggestion. We will actually look at it. We'll have a chat about it, and then we'll see where we can take it in that one. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else under the Peter?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to follow up John's point, there have been a lot of local transport initiatives starting up recently. The one that comes to my mind is Bingley Rural's Green Transport Scheme. And it would seem appropriate to reissue a circular if you're thinking of broadening the membership of the consultative committees to try and include some of these new initiatives in it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, we could take that on board.
Thank you.
No problem. Anybody else? No? Right. Okay, thanks for that, Dave. So it's Chair's update. There's a lot of stuff that we need. From my point of view, for Bradford, traffic levels remain stable at around 90% of pre-COVID. Active travel, which is very encouraging, remains higher than before the pandemic. Bus patronage at the moment is around 75 to 80%. 75% during the week, 80% at weekends. Rail use is around 65%. The operators can actually give their current data, but these are the data that we've actually had in Bradford. The bus funding review, which was actually to come to end in March, has now been extended to October. But after October, we don't know how things are going to pan out, but it's less than what it was before. The BSIP and enhanced partnership also, the that's been in the deadline was October 21, which we actually submitted to the government, because part of it was the funding criteria was to enter into that. We did actually put a submission to the select committee, which visited Bradford on 24th of February, and that is published on the inquiry website. Bradford, I mean, we did big. It's a big missed opportunity in the IRP. We continue to press the case for real improvements in Bradford. I know we were excluded from the HS2. The mass transit update, the connectivity infrastructure plan (SIP) has been updated. So these are some of the things that are happening in Bradford. The other one is that we have secured some funding in the region of about £300,000 for on-street residential charging point schemes, part of the government's Office for Zero Emission Vehicles. And we have identified some sites, 38 new fast charging points to be installed across 14 locations, allowing 75 vehicles to plug in. And these are places that we've identified where there is a bit of a shortfall for charging points. There are also the 20-mile-per-hour zones are actually now being enhanced. The current data that we have on the last scheme where we put 20-mile-per-hour zones does actually show that the safety has increased. So we've identified around 24 schools that where we're going to be installing the 20-mile-per-hour zone restrictions. So that's something also is in pipeline. And there are, I don't know whether people have seen some of the mayoral pledges, creation of 1,000 skilled jobs, launching an online portal allowing businesses to pledge greener jobs. There's also a delivery of £6 million entrepreneurship package of support, £500,000 approved for business support pipeline development, £500,000 development fund for cultural and creative industries. Also, sustainable homes, 5,000 sustainable homes. So we're looking at better local bus services, securing of 830 million from government for sustainable transport through the City Regional Sustainable Transport Settlement, 750 frontline officers and staff, and also launch of police and crime plan for West Yorkshire with focus on women and girls' safety. So these are some of the pledges. It's a 3-page document, but I've just actually highlighted just a few of them. We also are looking at the bus update, and under that, we're looking at the impact of COVID, bus services improvement plan, enhanced partnership, bus reform, and franchising assessments. And what we're looking at is what was the compelling case for change on patronage levels, risk in the commercial network, public sector support, funding support, future network growth potential, climate emergency, decarbonization and air quality, inclusion and accessibility. So these are, and there are other schemes that we are actually, there's a bit more funding has been secured for the Green Gate junction improvement. So under my update, these are some of the things that I just wanted to update you on. There are documents available on the website also. So if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those. No, thank you very much. Okay, item 8, information report. I think item 8, the information report was sent out to everybody. Dave, take it away.
Yes, I'll take questions rather than talk. The report directs you to the Transport Committee papers, and so if they've got any issues of matters that the Transport Committee dealt with, and by all means raise them with me. We've also sort of give you some updates about work in Bradford Interchange, Keighley Bus Station, Leeds Liverpool Canal Towpath, and a list of live schemes. I've got a presentation to share with you in a few minutes' time that takes you through some of the big policy issues and some of the big transport project issues that we've got coming up. So I'll give you a little bit more detail there, but I'll stop for now and take any questions people have got. No. Nobody got any questions?
Are there any questions to Dave on item 8?
I think, Dave, actually, the only one I would say is, do we have more of a firm date for the Bradford Interchange works? I seem to keep going to several meetings or having several Zoom meetings or in-person meetings at the interchange, and the date seems to keep changing. Do we have a set date, or are we still a little bit up in the air with that?
I think we're still a little bit up in the air. I mean, we're hoping really to make some really good progress across the summer. So I haven't got a definite date to move things, start moving things around. But I know the contract was awarded a week or so ago. So now that we've got contract sort of set, then we should be able to firm things up. This is the carriageway works are the sort of things we really want to get done in the better weather.
Okay, but at the same time, Dave, I hope that we're going to start advertising the rescheduling or moving our stands, and because there will be some stand movements to the.
There will be.
Yeah. As long as we do a good,
make people aware of it.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just going to cause problems. Okay, Peter, you were first, and then Andy.
Thanks, Chair. It's just a question and an update on the Leeds Liverpool Canal towpath improvement between Silverstone and the West Yorkshire boundary. Do we have any idea? Do you have any idea on when a decision is likely to be taken on funding for this particular project?
I don't, I'm afraid, but I can get a colleague to contact you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Andy?
Thanks. I was just wondering about the interchange works. From my memory, it's probably the third or fourth time we've gone through a series of not just resurfacing, but waterproofing underneath. I think water goes through into the space underneath. Is there something structurally wrong here and we keep patching it up? Or, is there something we could do for a more permanent?
The project which we've got is a permanent project, and to a certain extent, some of the problems we've been having have been as a result of patching and altering it. The structure is sound, and we've had structural engineers do a lot of work because it's you may or may not be aware that the premises occupied by the bingo company's been closed for quite a while, and that there was a problem found in that area, which has been fixed, but the bingo hasn't gone back in. And so, we've spent a lot of time and effort with structural engineers looking at the building. There's no fundamental issue. It's just that where you've got a lot of heavy vehicles moving around on a reinforced concrete frame, the point of weakness is the expansion joints between the two of them, and moisture is sort of getting underneath the surface of the decking, finding its way to the expansion joints and running through, and that's been part of the problem. So whilst it does require quite an extensive and expansive sort of work to fix, we are quite confident that this gives the interchange quite a lot more life. And I think it's also worth pointing out that this might be the first project of several projects on the interchange, and quite a lot of sort of ambitious work to linked with the approaches to the interchange from Hallings, some work the council's doing in terms of the multi-storey car park and opening that area up, and we're also looking at altering some of the passenger facilities, moving the travel centre upstairs, maybe changing some of the retail activity. And we're still looking at the possibility of putting a link across, a level link across from the bus side to the rail side, and how that might work. So there's quite a package of things we want to do at Bradford Interchange now. And to a certain extent, these works do get a little bit stalled by what's going to happen in the longer term, any rail services in particular, and how the interchange fits into that. But I think there's definitely a programme of work over the coming years which should very much refresh the interchange.
Okay. Anybody else? John? John, you're on mute.
Am I okay now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the Keighley bus station, what is actually planned for it? Because it's only 20 years since it was built. I can remember it very well when it was opened 20 years ago. Just on the sideline, somebody passed on to me Keighley History Club story about me opening it 20 years ago. So it makes me feel old, but still. But seriously, on a serious point, the Keighley bus station is an ideal spot for the town. One of the problems is that the shopping area is gradually moving to other areas. But what's planned for the Keighley bus station?
What we've just done is to completely refit out the toilets. So we've done a sort of, and I think there were, after 20 years, there were about due for one. And one of the things we have done is created this these things called changing places toilets, which are much bigger and more usable for people with disabilities, changing nappies for children, that sort of thing. So we've made the toilets bigger and better. So that's the main sort of investment in Keighley. But yeah, you're quite right. I mean, it is relatively recent facility. It's probably approaching a time where you've got to spend a little bit more money on it. So we've started with the toilets and the office areas, and there's probably some more work we can do in terms of the general sort of concourse area as well. But no plans to change it, close it, or move it.
Well, thanks very much. I appreciate that.
Okay, John. Thank you. Any further questions? None? Okay. Operators. Pete, you might have more to say than anybody else, so I'll let you go first.
Thank you very much, Chair. Indeed, I probably do. Okay, we are currently, like all other transport businesses, are coming out of COVID and the effects of COVID and what it's done to us. One thing that COVID has done to us, which is the back of the service cuts I'll talk about in a minute, is it's robbed us of available drivers, because we had pretty much a year without any training. That is because you cannot socially distance in a driving cab, and so we couldn't train for almost all of 2020 once the lockdown first hit. Thanks to a lot of work, not least by the trades unions, we got out of that and we started training again about this time last year. Initially, it was very slow because there was lots of testing and things to do. It got easier as time went on, and now we're now fully back training as we normally would, but we've got this backlog. And this is both new drivers, so people who have just joined us, and Northern tends to train a lot of new drivers, but also existing drivers. As they move around in the business, they need further training, and it's an ongoing process. And with 9 months with none going on, it's catching up, and that is the issue. Currently, that's been seen in our performance data, which is not where we would want it to be by any stretch of the imagination. And our cancellation figures are running at over 5%, which is unsustainable in the long run. So we made some cuts in early in January, to cope with the effects of the Omicron variant, which at the time was raging throughout the country. And that certainly helped. It got things under control, but it didn't solve the problem. And so we're making some more cuts now in the May timetable change, the next timetable change, to put us in a position where we can run a reliable service for our customers. That's the most important thing. But also we can catch up on this training, so we can put things back to where they should be later in the year. And that is important. It's important to remember that any of these cuts are short term. That's the plan. That's definitely the plan. In the Bradford district, there are a couple of services that have been affected. The Bradford to Huddersfield went 2 hourly in in January. It continues to be 2 hours throughout the summer, but more recently the services from Bradford to Ilkley and Bradford to Skipton are going down from half hourly to hourly. And the reason we've picked on those services in particular is just the numbers on those are much, much lower than everything else that runs on what we call Leeds Northwest, the Airedale and the Wharfdale lines. So that's the situation we're at, and that's why we've done what we've done. But I do emphasize, this is a short-term measure and not the thin end of any wedges. Customer numbers generally are down, but encouraging. More recently, we're currently, if you take an average of Northern as a whole, we're probably at about 80% of what we would have seen in 2019 pre-COVID. However, that hides a number of quite interesting changes, not least the commute. Our season ticket sales, our commuters, if you like, they were the bread and butter of what we did, and they were the reason for us to be here. And they are still sub 40%, so 40% of what we would have normally seen pre to COVID. And they are coming back, but very, very slowly. The flip side of this is we're seeing a lot of leisure travel. Currently, the leisure travels into city centres such as Bradford and Leeds. We're definitely seeing that. But as we move into the spring, and we noticed it this weekend, it was nice weather this weekend, we're seeing it out to the Dales and indeed up to the Yorkshire coast and through there. So that's what we're seeing. But the numbers are still down on what they would normally be at this time of year. One good thing we're seeing is an upturn in advance purchase tickets. These people buying up front. People will be commuting and buying these tickets. There's absolutely no shadow of a doubt there. But it enables us to control things much easier, because obviously we know which trains customers are traveling on, so we can maintain those tickets. And also, if necessary, we've had a couple of football derbies very recently where we've managed to move people away from the trains we know are going to be busy on the football derbies through selling cheaper tickets on other trains, and that's worked quite well. So there we go, Chair. That's the situation as far as Northern goes. Resources is our big issue. Resources in this case being fully qualified drivers. I do emphasize that we're not sitting on huge vacancies for drivers, because we're not, but fully qualified drivers is the issue. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Pete, for that. Roger?
This is a completely different question, and I thought I'd ask it once I'd got the thing. Do you know when you offer the 10p or the £1 tickets, why is it always so difficult to be able to find them on the website and not just be able to go to a particular point in the page to find that specific area, rather than having to go through train after train or route after route?
Well, they are limited, for one thing, and they're a lost leader, to say the least, as you can imagine. But many people do find them because they're very popular when we do them. But I don't know, and I'll ask the question of commercial if they can make it any easier. But they're available on certain trains, and we do them periodically. And indeed, interesting you should say, you will see a lot of advertising over the summer to encourage people back commuting. That's probably not the right word, but to promote commuting opportunities on Northern, because we would never have done that in the past, because frankly we never needed to, but clearly these days we do, and we will.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for that, Pete. Roger. Anybody else? Any question?
Can I ask if all the work at Leeds is finished, which might have caused you a lot of difficulty over the recent months?
Yes, all that work's done, but we're just about to start over the next few years, of course, the Transpennine route upgrade work, which is Legion and right across the region. So we will have almost constant engineering work. But I've got to say, credit to Network Rail and to our own people, the planning for that's well underway and seems robust. And what we did notice, especially at Christmas, when there's some extensive works on, the customers got to where they wanted to be. The bus replacements worked well. Using stations like Kirksville Forge as an interchange worked well. So that was encouraging. And I'm sure it will work as we go through this work. For Transpennine route upgrade, but the work at Leeds is complete.
Thanks, Graham. Cheers for that, Pete. Anybody else? Andy?
Thanks, Chair. I was just wondering, my experience at work is that I'm working from home now, and I'm likely to do so pretty much permanently. Most of my colleagues are working from home. Every time they do go into the office, they complain there's no one else there. So there's little, there's little demand for them to go into the office now. We can work perfectly well from home. And people really like the idea of not having to commute. It gives them an hour, 2 or 3 hours back in their day. So I'm wondering if there's almost an opportunity here for trains, if passengers are more leisure-based, to have the passengers spread out more across the day rather than being concentrated into a couple of hours in the morning and a couple of hours in the evening and running almost empty trains the rest of the day. There might actually be an opportunity here.
I fully agree, and there is, and we grasped that opportunity last year where we saw, huge leisure flows, and indeed the flip side to what you're seeing through Belden is we are maintaining those leisure flows and increasing them. So the Wolds Coast, which was incredibly popular last year, is continuing this year at full chat with longer trains, and that we're running longer trains up through the Valley and along the Settling Carlisle line through to Carlisle, obviously, but they're very popular with tourists of all types, at all times of year. So yes, you're absolutely right. The market has changed. However, the commute does still exist. It's just different, it's funny enough. What we are finding is we're definitely seeing a bit of a peak on a Wednesday and Thursday, as people who do work in the office tend to work on a Wednesday and Thursday. But of course, if you work in retail, you can't work from home, and there's many people who can't work from home. So it's a different market, and it will change back again. But we've got to absorb the market and deal with the market as we find it now, which is what we're doing.
Thanks for that, Pete. I see Richard is on the call. I mean, as Richard, I know you give the main report, but if Richard has got anything to say, I'm more than happy to take it. Okay, if not, there being no further questions. Thanks for that, Pete. Raja?
Sorry, I was just trying to get on then, couldn't get off
Sorry,
unmute.
Richard, my apologies. Carry on.
Yeah, just to say there's been a tremendous amount of community work that's gone on in the Bradford district around the railway line. Really good relationship with Bradford City Community Foundation. A group of students from inner city Bradford will be going to Parliament on the 19th of April to present some work they did on unwanted sexual behaviour and highlighting the need to report incidents on the railway line. So some really positive performance, and I was really pleased to see that 3 students from Bradford were invited down to an event, a joint leadership event across government departments at Canary Wharf in the summer to present what they've been doing on working with the railway industry. So some really positive things on the community agenda going on in Bradford, and indeed we are doing some work with all of the colleges on a rail camp that the business has developed to encourage people into the rail industry. So lots of positive things going on the community front in Bradford. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Richard. Brilliant. That's really good. Really, really good. Any questions to Richard on that? No? Thanks, Richard. Raja?
Okay, thanks, Chair. I think the first thing I'll come on to is our driver position at the moment. So at the moment, we are just about across the board, give or take 1, up and down. We're still actively recruiting, which we have done since we came out of the pandemic. So we've not stopped recruiting at all over the last year and whatever it is. We're still getting applications through, so there are the number of people coming. We've dropped some of the restrictions that we can drop. There are some things that we can't drop, obviously. A problem with a PCV license or a medical or something of that nature, that still has to be through DVLA and the person who applies. But we are getting the people through. We're actively training. We've had another 2 new starters start this week. 3 started last week, and in the pipeline we've got about another 4 or 5 starting up to the beginning of April, and then we're still continuing with interviews. So yes, we are getting people through. Unfortunately, I think like a lot of industries, and I have to say I've been in the industry now for just coming up to 35 years. This is probably one of the worst times I've seen over the last years for retention of staff. And that's for varied reasons. People just wanting to do something different, people wanting to spend more time at home, and so on and so forth. And it is quite, when you do exit interviews, it is quite strange how some people do leave or some people give examples which I would have never have thought of. But, you know, everybody does have a change or a different outlook on life in relation to wanting to try something different. So that's where we are at the moment. Obviously, we are looking at some timetable changes again. We were going to do some at the beginning of April. We're now going to be doing those at the end of April, the 27th, I believe that is. So that's to, again, try and match the demand with the amount of people that are coming back onto there. We do have the Joint Alliance initiative, so that's to get people back onto the buses, and that's at the West Yorkshire busjobs.com website. So if anybody's interested in that, they can always go to that website. Passenger recoveries. So yes, we still continue to see a gradual improvement. The latest figures that I got as of the back end of last week was Bradford was now at about 84%. I think like most operators, probably we're seeing a little bit better improvement at the weekend rather than during the weekdays. But overall, we're about 84%. So we are getting back to where we wanted to be. We've always said that we wanted to get to around the 90% mark. So we're gradually just about getting there. And then obviously it's looking forward from there, getting back to the volumes that we had. The commercial side of it, the volumes have increased, but we still see some of the concessions are still lagging behind there. Again, I would always say, and if we could help on initiatives, would always be welcome to see whatever can be done there to help build those concessions to get back up to where they were initially. Since we last met, First West Yorkshire has introduced new fare structures, including what we call tap on and tap off. So that's at the moment showing some encouraging results, and will hopefully continue to do so. And this is basically trying to make it simpler, cheaper, fairer and more flexible. Some of the tickets that we've introduced are 3 and 5 day tickets. So rather than individuals having to buy, for example, a return journey, a single journey or a day ticket, the next one used to be a 7-day ticket, but to try and adapt to where we are in relation to the market. So some people saying they're working from home, maybe half and half. We've now got a 3 and a 5 day ticket, which obviously are priced accordingly. With the tap on and tap off, hopefully by the end of April, that will also work for return journeys, where at the moment it only works for single journeys, where the individual or the customer taps off when they get off, and then it caps the price at whatever that day ticket is for that particular area. We're also looking at adapting this for corporate travel clubs, so that the employee schemes, we have some employee schemes, again being a little bit more flexible to that. So or maybe looking at different multiple days of travel. So that's something else that we're looking into, but we haven't got quite that far yet, but we're going forward with that. I think a lot of us sitting around here will know that the fuel prices are increasing, but just to reiterate, for First Bus, it is mostly edged. First Bus does maintain hedging strategy, which also aims to mitigate the risks from short-term volatility in the market price of fuel. Obviously, that's something we'll continue to do going forward in an hope to, well, obviously get the best prices by hedging. Funding, so yes, I think Councillor Tadge just mentioned on this. So obviously the government has announced by the Department of Transport the £150 million funding package over the next 6 months or so. We're still on the understanding that the detail of the distribution is still to be released, so I'm sure that will be coming forward. Expansion of live chat for customers this year, so we're looking at opening up our customer services section longer, including for the weekend as well, and also to offer a live chat facility for customers rather than having to wait on the telephone. Andy, so just to go on, now I wasn't aware of anything specific with the 607 as I wasn't in the last meeting for the Thornton Road corridor when, sorry, the last meeting for the schedules and networking, where the changes are going to be coming on the 27th. So what I can do, if you've got any, if you can let me know what the specifics are, and then I can feed that back to our scheduling and networking department to understand a little bit better what you're looking for or what other customers are looking for, and then see if I can come back to you with anything. I suspect for the 27th of April, it may be a little bit late now, but we can always have a look at that going forward. And that's my report for this meeting, Chair.
Thank you, Raja. Any questions to Raja? Andy?
It's not really to Raja, but a more general question. Welcome the sort of tap on, tap off, or any improvement to the ticketing system. But from a passenger point of view, it breaks down when you're using multiple operators, because you bus into town, different operator from your bus out of town, and then it sort of breaks down. Then you're better off with a Metro card or something at that point. Is there any way we could integrate this sort of tap on, tap off with a Metro level scheme, so it's a bit more seamless for passengers?
Shall I answer that? Because
yes,
it gets a little bit into the bus service improvement plan, which we submitted to government in October, and I'll touch on that in a second as well. But one of the things that the National Bus Strategy encourages is for multi-operator products, so that people don't have that problem. And I think one of the advantages we have in this area is we do have the M card. And I think one of the things we have talked to First and to other operators about moving very much towards a multi-operator capping situation, so that you essentially will pay the same regardless of which bus companies services you're travelling on. We're in a place where First have invested in the technology to do tap on, tap off. The tap off readers are needed to calculate your journey length. Other operators aren't there yet with the tap off equipment, and we need to get everybody in the same place in terms of the technology as well to be able to do this. So but definitely build that into our bus service improvement plan, and to move towards the multi-operator tickets being the default tickets at no greater price, just because you have to use a different bus operator service is irrelevant to the journey that people want to make.
Thanks, Andy. I mean, the long-term aspirations are always, Andy, is that, we want integrated ticketing. We've had a number of trials, and I think with the services, like you say, changing from day to night or night to morning, then, it's different operators at different times. So that's something that is very much in the focus. Thanks for that. Anybody else? To Mohammed Raja?
I will just say one other thing, Taj, if that's okay, is that when speaking to quite a few drivers, a lot of drivers have welcomed the change as well, of having basically 3 or 4 fares rather than a lot of different fares. And it does make it that little bit simpler for them as well to be able to operate, and takes out a lot of the arguments that can occur when it comes to fares on vehicles. So we do see a little bit better understanding from customers, and drivers do actually like that. So yeah, welcomed. Hopefully we can keep going forward with making it simpler, and even better if we can integrate it going forward.
The other thing is, Andy, one of the good things that's come out of this fair review was to drop the boundaries. So the boundaries have been dropped, whereas before, if somebody was actually going up to, say, Farmers Inn, and then they wanted to travel another bus stop, they couldn't use that ticket from. So if they got on and went up to that bus stop, but if coming back, they would have to either walk to the boundary, because if they got on that bus stop that they've got off at, the machine wouldn't actually accept the Bradford card because they're in the Leeds boundary, but those boundaries have been dropped now, so which is much simpler, and also, the simplified fares are actually very much. The other thing is that, I mean, all operators will agree on this, is that the under-19s fares and the patronage has actually grown massively, and that, you see a lot of young people now traveling with the £2.50 metro on my day, and that is encouraging because those are the potential passengers of future. Okay, thank you for that. Let me just go to because I've got 2 screens here, that's why I'm flipping from one to the other, just in case somebody else is. Graham is on the second screen, and also a few other people. Okay, thanks for that. Mark, you're next.
Yes, thank you. Much to echo a lot of the comments that have already been made, both by yourself, Chair, and by other operators. There's the uncertainty around the funding and what post-October will look like. And of course, that's quite key, quite crucial to underpinning what the future network will look like. But nonetheless, the continuation of the funding, certainly until then, is definitely welcome. Again, just to cover off on the same things that you've mentioned about the bus service improvement plans, other positive pieces of news that we're working on as the A641 Corridor scheme that's primarily being coordinated by Calderdale, but all in the Brighouse area, but also, of course, as a key corridor out of the city, up Manchester Road for Bradford, and indeed through to Kirklees into Huddersfield as well. the February service changes that we've introduced, that brought in an increase in the 268 from hourly to every 30 minutes on Sundays. Much as the other operators have done, we face the same issues and challenges with driver shortages, more acutely across the east of our network, so it's in the Wakefield and Castleford areas. I mean, we've all got different challenges, but to different degrees, but primarily for us, it's in the Wakefield and Castleford areas. But nonetheless, as part of ensuring we deliver a sustainable network while trying to maintain connectivity and not undermine passenger confidence, we've got some changes coming in the late April change that will match what we're able to deliver in terms of resource. Again, staff retention is a big thing for us. So not only is it about recruitment, it's about retention and keeping hold of the staff that we've got. We've looked at various different rota patterns and staff consultations to try and deliver within existing resource what we can to allay people's concerns, because as has been highlighted, people are now more aware to different working patterns, different working customs, working from home, the working weeks changed, and that's for our staff as well, not just the customers that use our services. Punctuality again has recovered pretty well and now is more or less there or thereabouts in line with pre-pandemic levels, and that's really about it from us, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. I see Dwayne is on. Does Dwayne want to make a comment, or are you okay with that, Dwayne? What?
Nothing to add, Raj. No, Mark's covered it all for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I mean, one of the things I just wanted to ask the operators, I know Pete is gone because he's got another meeting, is that with the driver shortages, are we actually looking at increasing the training facilities? So just, Mark, you're on, and Raja, you're on.
Well, to answer that, Chair, I wouldn't go so far as to say increasing it, but we're looking very closely on a constant basis of how effective it is and does it deliver what we need. It's not always about doing more of, it's about doing what we already do more effectively. Yes, to that end, we're looking at part-time vacancies to make sure we're appealing to different sections of the labour market that might not otherwise be interested. So it could be single parents, it could be people who are going into work. We look at a number of issues that are raised through our customer care and customer engagement, and try and work that in with our driver CPC programs. So it's not really so much about doing more of, it's about, as I said, what we do, but doing it more effectively.
Okay, thanks for that.
Again, on a different note, so we have actually in Bradford, we've employed another training officer, so another driver trainer, as you're probably aware, Tad. So we've now got 2 driver trainers who will be specifically initially training drivers as and when they come through the programme. The way that we would probably foresee this going at a later date is that once we've got back to the numbers where we would want to be, then we can start looking at using these trainers for, as Mark's just alluded to, so CPC, or going out with individual drivers if we see that there's possibly been a failing from having an accident or anything like that. So definitely within our remit in Bradford, we've now got 2 trainers, 2 buses, and it's just a question of trying to utilise those to bring up the standard of driving, and 2, keep the drivers flowing through for us to keep the timetable moving in the right direction and keep our services going.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Raja. Okay, any questions to Mark? No? Oh, sorry, Andy.
Just a very quick one. You both mentioned retention. Are you finding your drivers are leaving to do driving work for other companies, or are they leaving the industry?
I think for me, when I've done exit interviews with some drivers, so the last 3 have gone for local drop wagon driving, so not the HGV ones, the smaller wagons. We have had 2 drivers. She's now left, and she did become an HGV 1 driver. And I do believe I've got another driver who is in the process of probably handing in his resignation, as he's now just passed his HGV 1. So there are a couple of people where they're going for more smaller, but we've also got some that are going up to the bigger wagons. And the other one, like I said, just people wanting to do something totally different. We don't seem to get a lot of people who are going to, for example, Arriva, Transdev, so being bus drivers. So it's just a question of what people just generally want to try. And whilst the market's there to try it, that's actually what we're seeing at the moment. It has the one good thing, and I'm not sure about Mark or there's nobody on from Transdev. The one good thing I have seen, especially over the last 4 weeks, is that the number of people leaving has slowed down compared to what it was. So that has certainly helped. Obviously, you'll always get people leaving where it becomes a medical issue or what do you call it, a gross misconduct issue, etc., etc. But in terms of people just resigning to go to other industries, touch wood, that has slowed down. And I think that's what we're seeing across West Yorkshire when I go to meetings with my counterparts in Halifax, Huddersfield and Leeds as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Mark, do you want to come in?
Yeah, pretty much the same for us, really. I think at the start of the easing of restrictions, people were beginning to feel as though they were maybe breaking out of, if you like, an enforced cocoon, and they started to want to look at what other options were out there. We had a number of people leave us for the HGV industry. I think the headlines as part of that didn't help, you know, come and earn £40,000, £50,000, particularly fuel tanker drivers in particular. So we did see a number of people leave, but then as the restrictions have continued to ease, people have left and they've gone multi-drop delivery driving. That hasn't quite worked out what they thought, and the expectations on those staff to deliver those schedules were far more onerous than what they faced driving a bus. And pleasingly, as well as the comments that Raja has said, which have been reflected with us as well, pleasingly we've had a number of people come back from the HGV sector, having initially jumped ship and moved over. They've come back. I think it's probably also fair to say that the mayor and local MPs that we've engaged with have also helped balance the government's focus, because you'll recall in the national media at the start of the easing of restrictions, there was everyday mention of a HGV driver shortage, and that helped to create the headlines and create the noise. But I think as we've engaged with stakeholders such as the mayor, such as MPs, I think the government appear to be less intent on focusing solely on HGVs and recognising that there are other careers out there for people as well.
However, I mean, Andy, just to say that when we did actually do a survey of all the workplaces in the passenger sector, 68% said that they were leaving due to going to a HGV or trucking, and around 40% said that they were going to retail. But people have actually, I mean, people have started thinking differently in the sense of what their priorities are at this moment. Okay, thanks for that, Mark, for that report. If there are no further questions, then I can move on to item 10. Dave, take away a look ahead.
Okay. Right, I'm going to share my screen. So tell me if you can see this.
Not yet, Dave.
Okay. Right. I just need to do something. If you just bear with me.
All right, Dave. Where's he gone?
We've lost him, haven't we?
Yeah.
I hope he'll be right back.
All right. Yeah, Dominic. Otherwise, you'll have to take item 10. I think he's just trying to get the presentation up. Yeah, he's back.
Dave, if you're still having trouble, myself or Ian should be able to share it.
Oh, you can see it now.
Can you see that now?
Yeah.
Okay. Apologies, it threw me out. Okay. Right. What I just wanted to do was to bring you up to date with some of our sort of key policy and key themes, some of which we've already talked about. So I'll run through this fairly quickly. So we've touched on the bus service improvement plan already this afternoon, and that's very much a process which we started last year, about this time last year. I think we had this particular session later on in the summer with the district consultation committees to develop this plan, which we then submitted in October, and we're waiting to hear possibly this month what the outcome of our funding bid for that is. So our bus service improvement plan is very much where we want to improve bus services from the point that we're at the moment, and it has been touched on earlier. There are challenges at the moment: driver shortages, fuel costs, other things that are impacting, as well as the passenger numbers are not what they were before the pandemic. So lots of challenges, but obviously we want to come out of it in a stronger way. So it was talked about earlier in terms of multi-operator ticketing, making it easier for people to pay, simpler for people to pay. All of these things are things which we want to develop, as well as adapting the bus networks for what people want going forward. So the bus service improvement plan is a key element. The mayor was elected on a pledge of bringing buses back into control, public control, and so we made a very significant step towards that last Thursday at the Combined Authority meeting, which approved establishing an enhanced partnership. What that is very much a contractual relationship between the Combined Authority, bus operators and councils to sort of commit to delivering against the bus service improvement plan, essentially, in terms of how we would move that forward. So by the end of March, we will have an enhanced partnership plan in place. We'll have the first scheme, which applies to infrastructure that's recently built in Leeds, and then we'll add that infrastructure through as we as more and more schemes get delivered. We'll introduce further enhanced partnership schemes around ticketing when we know what the shape of the funding from the bus service improvement plan is. And it's very much a twin track approach, and we've started the process of looking to see whether or not franchising is the long-term solution for bus services in West Yorkshire, and that's in line with the National Bus Strategy as well, for us to look at that. And in particular, we start the work this year to do that assessment for franchising, so that next year we can make a sort of set of recommendations to the mayor, who ultimately makes a decision around bus franchising as a way forward. So we will look at the value for money of each of the options and present that to the mayor to make that decision to move to the next step, which is probably sometime next year. Touching on rail, it's appropriate, I think, for us in West Yorkshire to develop and review our rail strategy, and so the the work has started to do that, and I think that'll be a feature of future meetings in terms of talking to you in some detail around what the strategy for rail should be, how we should look at things like the capacity of the network, and how the major projects, Pete Myers mentioned the Transpennine route upgrade, had impacts across all of West Yorkshire, not just on that line of route, and how that investment works. And so the development of rail strategy is very much looking at what the high level principles that we'd like to see, and what sort of work do we need to actually make the case for further investment, both to address capacity, which is an issue in our region, improve the passenger experience, and particularly to look at this integration of rail and other modes of travel, and obviously to support decarbonisation. But we can't lose sight of the integrated rail plan, which was announced earlier this year, and the disappointment that sits around that, particularly for Bradford, and particularly that there won't be a new Northern Powerhouse rail line via central Bradford, and the outcome of the integrated rail plan was quite unsatisfactory from a West Yorkshire point of view. And now we're in the process of actually how do you move on from that, and how do we actually sort of lobby further for further investment. There's also a lack of clarity in the integrated rail plan. Some mixed messages around mass transit funding, how the Transpennine route upgrade fits into that. Whilst we welcome the fact that it has announced the Transpennine route upgrade, we need to look at how that builds into a better network for the whole region. And I think there's some real questions to answer that if HS2 doesn't extend up on the east side to East Midlands and Leeds, then can the East Coast Main Line carry the sort of and deliver on the fast journey times, and carry the numbers of people that's planned to over the years? And some serious questions to answer, I think, there. So I think a significant significant concern being expressed about the implications, particularly for our region, that's come out of the integrated rail plan. So there will be much work done, and there's a reason why we're developing a further rail strategy, is to counter some of that, and to get a commitment to meaningful investment. And I think the view is that some of the things in the integrated rail plan were a little bit thought upon the hoof. And whilst electrification between Leeds and Bradford is a good thing, for example, it doesn't cover the whole of the Calder Valley line. And how do you actually manage that within the existing infrastructure? Lots of questions which the integrated rail plan really isn't answering. So the next steps, the Mayor was giving evidence to the House of Commons Transport Select Committee. They wanted to hear how the plan would impact on local economies, and the Mayor's done some work in terms of expressing the experience of ordinary people travelling around West Yorkshire into that process, as well as involving local business, and then establishing further studies and information and lobbying so that we can get a further better outcomes than we've seen in the integrated rail plan. There is some good news around, though, as well. The City Region Sustainable Transport Settlement, which mayoral authority areas gets a specific funding stream for sustainable transport projects, and that identifies a scheme of around 20 million to do improvements to rail stations, to improve stations across all of the area, and in particular to look at some of the areas where platform extensions at Leeds, for example, on platform 13 and 17 enables longer trains to the 5 towns at Huddersfield. So, so very targeted investment at building capacity. A few other things just to touch on. Demand responsive transport through the Leeds Public Transport Improvement Programme. We've funded a trial of minibuses in East Leeds on a demand responsive people book and travel. We've put in our bus service improvement plan and city region sustainable transport funding for more of these. And learning the lessons from the one that we've established, and we're also linking into to develop this concept of mobility hubs with local councils, which basically link places where active travel, walking, and cycling, bus provision, possibly linking to a railway station where there's one available, taxis, so that generally places where people come to and possibly change mode to travel. So doing some more work around that. And then just the list of projects in the Bradford district that will start on site next year. I think we talked about the project at Bradford Interchange. Transforming travel centres is our project for redeveloping the information provision at Bradford Interchange, and we also got the Steeton Silverton car park, which I think is about to start. I think I thought it already started, and the Harrogate New Line work is ongoing, and that's work that we're seeing on the ground now. So I think that covers all of things on that slideshow. So happy to take questions on any of that.
Okay. Thanks for that, Raja.
Just 2 questions, Dave. One, what did P1 stand for on Bradford Interchange on the last slide?
Phase 1.
It was the top.
Sorry, yeah. Apologies for that. That's phase 1 of the Transforming Cities Fund, and that's where we're looking at altering the entrance areas. Around the Bridge Street area and working with Bradford, possibly depending on other things. I think it's no secret the idea of taking down the multi-storey car park and opening the interchange up to Holdings.
Okay, and on the East Project DRT, I know it's around 6 to 9 months. Has it been in operation somewhere around that time? How is it going? I know it's an 18-month trial, but how's it going initially, and are there further improvements for, let's say, Bradford to do something similar?
Yes, it's carrying reasonable numbers of people, so it's doing okay from that point of view. I think we've got a little bit of work to do in terms of making the customer proposition a little bit better. We've got some work to do with the app. I think the schemes work best when you book it, it comes and picks you up, it picks somebody else up, it drops you off, it drops them off. I think we're carrying more single person journeys than we would like on the bus, and I think that's probably something around how the technology works and how we're organising it. So I think the short answer to that is it's doing okay, but I think we're learning as we go along, and I think that these things are take a little bit of thinking around in terms of what works and what doesn't work.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Dave. Any further questions to Dave on his presentation? No?
Okay. I've got one more presentation to do with you. If hopefully this will come up.
Yes, here.
Right, sorry, that's the wrong one.
Okay.
Just bear with me. It'll come back.
Thank God I'm mute. You got a minute or two? If this is the end of the meeting, I want to get something in before it finishes.
For some reason, it's not actually moving to the other one. Right, see if this works. Sorry about this. Right, that's it. We've touched on this a bit already, so I think it's worth going back. I think particularly Andy Dewsbury's questions are sort of relevant to this. In terms of, we just thought it was useful to have a little bit of a discussion around how we think public transport looks after the end of the pandemic. The graphs on this slide are there to sort of illustrate, and on the left-hand side on each of the graphs is where we were 2 years ago in March 2020, and then you can see how the whole thing's played out from left to right, and you can also see that we're not, as a number of people have said this afternoon, we're not back where we were in terms of the number of people who were travelling on local buses. The travel information request is a bit of a proxy for how people are intending to travel, and the numbers going through Leeds Station are a bit of a proxy for how people are travelling by rail. So it's getting better. Well, people are slowly coming back to public transport use, but you can see we're still somewhere short of where we would think it should be. I think one of the key things there, and I think it's already been touched on, is that we've been doing surveys all the way through the pandemic, how our colleagues have, the Combined Authority, telephone surveys, just asking people what their travel intentions were, and it's been really illuminating across each of the stages of the pandemic. But I think one of the things that does jump out at this slide is that
how much money do we
currently West Yorkshire residents are travelling to work 3.1 days a week, and before the pandemic it was 4.4, and that if you extrapolate this, and it is rough numbers, we could expect to see a reduction of commuting trips for around about 19%. I think it's really important when we talk about this to remember that, particularly perhaps on bus more than rail as well, there's still an awful lot of people who have been going to workplaces all the way through the pandemic, and who do need to be in a place to do their jobs, whether they work in retail, education, lots of other activities where people are going to work. But I think we can see something in the order of 20% reduction in commuting, and that's probably for the longer term. Transport Focus is the body who is the sort of national passenger advocate for public transport or transport generally across the country. They've also been doing their weekly surveys, and just picking up the latest one. I think one of the things we've seen as we watched the Transport Focus surveys coming through is at various different times people felt uncomfortable using public transport because of the risk of transmission. I think that seems to be moving away now, and 90% of public transport users feel safe. But a smaller number, 70% of people who are not regular users, would feel safe. So there's a little bit of a gap that of people's confidence in using public transport, and a third say that they'll never feel particularly comfortable using public transport in the future. So I think the sensitivity that quite a lot of people have about crowded spaces will probably prevail for some time to come. So just to summarise what I think a few people this afternoon have said, not just me in his presentation, but we're slowly seeing people come back to public transport, and the lifting restrictions has helped that. But we're nowhere back at 2019 levels yet. There's a greater use of public transport for leisure, weekend trips, off peak. So I think that seems to be something that's prevailing, and I think Pete Myers mentioned that on rail as well. The changing ways of working will have a long-term impact on commuting. I think Mr. Dewsbury said this earlier, and that'll affect overall numbers of people travelling. There's still some hesitancy around, but I think some people are confidence is building a little bit. Workforce issues, which we talked about at length this afternoon, that's affecting service levels and reliability, and that's not a good place. We're trying to encourage people back onto public transport, and yet struggling to deliver the service because of workforce availability is not where anybody would want it to be. And I think the other thing we shouldn't lose sight of is the fact that the cost of living crisis is putting the prices of everything up for people. That'll mean people travel less if they can't afford to travel, and the worst thing we would want to see there is that sends cost pressures and revenue pressures in, and then the fares go up, and then that becomes a very a bit of a spiral of decline. So some real concerns there, but it's also some green shoots of things going a little bit back to how they were. So I just wanted to sort of throw some questions at you now, or for you to come back later if you want to reflect on them. How in this environment, how do we get people back into public transport? How does public transport need to change? And what should it look like in 10 years' time? So I'll open it up for people to give their thoughts around that.
I think the first thing on how to attract passengers back to public transport is we've got to run a more reliable service and getting back to where we need to be, so that we've got customer satisfaction levels. I think that's the first thing. How do we attract them back? Well, reliable services, reliable services that turn up when they say they're turning up. I think one biggest thing I see from my customer complaints from customers, and I don't know how we fix this, but I think one of the biggest things is when a customer is stood at the bus stop saying bus is due, bus is due, bus is due, and then it just doesn't turn up for whatever the reason. I understand the logic behind what happens, but I'm wondering for myself, is do customers really understand what does happen, especially if they've stood there and waited 10 or 15 minutes. I can put my hand on my heart and say I'm one of those people that, boy, it's on its way, then it just doesn't turn up. So it has happened to me too. How do we need to change? I think one of the ways we've got to change is adapt to what the workforce is going to be like in 3 to 5 years' time. So will the workforce change? Will it come back to what we know pre-COVID? And the other question would be is how quickly can we change to meet that demand of whatever that might look like in the future? And again, I think that the passengers, I think what customers definitely want, simpler fares going forward all the time. That's one of the biggest things. I'm sure at some point, and I don't know how far down the line this might come, we may end up going contactless as more and more the younger generation start to come through. Have just got used to contactless fares, and so I think that's probably one of the ways forward in the 10-year period. How quickly we can do that, and how quickly as operators we can all integrate a lot better. I think they're the 2 or 3 things that people would like to see more of. Thank you.
Thank you, Raja. Anybody else? 3 questions. Ideas on how to attract passengers back onto public transport. How does public transport need to change? What should public transport offer passengers, say, 10 years' time? So Raja's actually said a number of things on there. And I think, Andy?
I think the problem from my point of view is how do we offer a better service to passengers while actually running fewer services in terms of buses and trains? And the obvious answer to me is to better coordinate them. We've had a bugbear for years that you can get the last train from Leeds, but it's just missed the last bus out from Bradford. If you had a frequent service, then you've got the next bus to wait for. It's not too bad. But if the services are more sparse, that becomes much more of a problem. So if we can do a lot better in integrating, matching up one service arriving with the next service leaving, I think we can do a lot better, even though we've got fewer services. And in some ways, that might be easier to do.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because in some ways, it's being targeted to the reason why people travel and having the services where people want them. And I think that piece about integration is really, really key, isn't it? What journeys are people making, and how does the public transport knit together to be able to enable that?
Yeah, but basically, I don't know how many services are running. If I'm not using them, I don't care. It's only the services I want to use that need to be running.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? I think that's what it is, John. Sorry, John. Dave. Is that what Raj has actually said? And I think you've heard me say this on a number of occasions, is that reliability, punctuality, and also affordability are the three key things. Integration of ticketing, coordination of services. These are the future sort of questions that are going to be asked of us. How do we do this, and how do we do that? How are you going to do this, and how are you going to do that? And also, I've always said this. I don't think passengers ever care what a bus looks like outside. What they do care is what is offered inside that bus. Whether there's a USB charging point, whether it's free Wi-Fi. These are the things that young people
what are you talking about?
Yeah. What's that, John?
I'm not sure you're right there, Taj.
Go on.
I think that passengers are more interested in the service, in the level of the service, and the regularity of the service, rather than what's inside the buses. Sometimes, I mean, it's okay for the youngsters to have Wi-Fi available in the bus, but I think it's more important for the buses to run more regular.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I've said, John. The three most important things are reliability, punctuality, and affordability. These are the three most important things. But then again, if we're going to attract people onto the buses, then we've also got to offer some service inside, the comfort inside, and also other needs that people have while they are actually traveling. But it's a question that, these are the three questions, which are key questions, to be honest with you, are going to have to be well thought of, and how we actually move forward and how we attract people back onto the buses and trains. It's public transport mostly. I have no problem with taxis as a last mile, but I never want to see taxis anywhere near public transport strategy, because we don't want to get people out of one car and put them into another car. I know car sharing and everything else is good in the sense of getting more cars off the road, but it's the bus and the train that we are actually looking at. Even under active travel, I want to see more where I can carry my bike on a train. I don't have to pre-book it, or I can get my bike on a bus, which I don't have that facility at this moment of time. So, in most of the cases, if I want to go somewhere out of Bradford on a longer journey, I can take my bike and then go last mile on my bike. Okay. Dave, I think I can't see any more hands up, so thanks for that.
Okay,
if there are no questions to Dave, you want to say the last word?
No, I think that's just thank you for this is the last meeting of these ones we've in this form. So thank you all for your participation. Obviously we do take records of the meeting, and we I think one or two questions which we couldn't answer, which we'll come back to you. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So as chair, I mean, I'd like to thank you all for giving up your afternoon. And it's really important for us to actually have people like yourselves on here and the operators, but you know, local residents is also very, very crucial. Thank you very much. Thanks very much for
Chair, can I come in?
Yeah, John, I thought you were just bashing your phone.
No. Do I take it from what Dave said earlier in the meeting about the new restructuring that we'll all have to be this is the last meeting of the present committee?
It is, yeah.
Because if it is, I'm going to have to make a very serious consideration when I'm asked if I want to be considered to be for nomination appointment again. As I say, I've been on since the consultative committee started in 80. I think it was 86 it started, and I've been saying every year this is my last year. But I've appreciated all the time I've been on, and all the different chairs, including yourself, Chair. But seriously, I'm getting the age now where I think I've got to consider making a room for younger people. But I'll make that consideration later. And I hope that when the new committee is set up, if I don't come on it, I'll have the opportunity of thanking everybody at the time. Okay, bye.
Thank you very much, John. Yeah, no problem.
You,
I know you've been here forever, John, and you feel like you've been here forever. But your
Thank you very much. I'll get you back for that.
But on a serious note, John, your contributions have always been, you know, I mean, really, really much appreciated. You've always come up with really good ideas, and you made your, you know, I mean, and every time you intervene, it's always on a real issue. So thank you very much, John. But going forward, I mean, I'm not really sure how the committee is going to look after the elections, if there's going to be new appointments or, you know, change of personnel. But if I'm still here, I will convey that message back to if you're not here, which I'm sure, you know, this is the 110th times I've heard that, right? I'm not coming back, and then you always come back, right, John? So somebody will twist your arm and come back, isn't it, Andy? Yeah. So thank you very much. Look, any chair is as good as the committee itself, and I think you guys have really helped me through the years that I've actually chaired it. So I'd also like to say thank you very much. If I'm back, I'll see you after the elections, and thank you for your all your help and assistance in that. So thanks very much. Have a lovely rest of the week, and we'll see you back in June or July time. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.